This conversation may get a little intense because there are a lot of you who are going to buck against what I'm about to say. But first, let me give you what God gave me to give to you. A couple of days ago, I woke up to a vision, and the thing that God showed me was two robes being changed, the old robe and the new robe. And in the robe, it was a royal garment, a robe that they wore or that you wear as a mantle, as a covering, as a protection, things of that nature, or even an identity for who you are. These two robes, one of them was the robe that Jesus wore. And what God said to me was they couldn't wait to strip him, right? So they couldn't wait to rip off of him the robe that he wore. It wasn't necessarily about who he was or what he represented to them, or him going against what it was that they believed. It was who he represented and what he came to do that they wanted to strip and rip him of the robe that he had on. And for many of us that are called, many of us who have, some of us haven't even stepped into calling yet, but from the time that people looked at and saw that oil, saw that mantle, saw that coat of many colors, saw what it is that was something that they couldn't quite put their finger on, they have been ripping your robe and been stripping you from as long as you can remember, simply because of something that God gave you, that he called you to do, that he put on you, that he anointed you to be or to do. People have been stripping you. Many of us have been hearing in the spirit for some time God's original intent. Many of us are returning to God's original intent. What Jesus came to do was restore us to God's original intent. So they strip you as they stripped Jesus from the robe that he was wearing and cast lots for the robe that he was wearing. Now, with this new robe, this timing that we are in, what Jesus came to do was to restore us back to the original intent of what God has called us to do. But people are going to buck. They're going to gut you like a fish to defend what it is that they believe when God is doing a new thing, when he's robing a new generation in kingdom priestly robes to do the work that God has called and assigned for his people to do. But because we are so stuck on tradition, religion, denomination, we'll fight tooth and nail for it, that we're not open to hear or to know the original intent of what it is that God called us here to do. Some years ago, back in the 2007, 2012, I went to seminary. Went to seminary twice. A lot of people, seminary is a cemetery, things of that nature. But I thank God for those experiences, because some of the things that you learn in seminary is how the Bible came to be, how it was put together. You learn about the documentary hypothesis. You learn about the four different sources that had their hands in, how the Bible was put together, the sources that we use, how there's two different, there's a northern version and a southern version. This is why we hear stories like who slayed Goliath. You hear David slaying him in one part of the Bible. Is the same story, but then in another one you hear of somebody from the northern kingdom slaying him. Then it wasn't Goliath, then it was Goliath's brother and things of that nature. But it depends on which side of the country, or the place where they are, is telling the story, from the northern side or from the southern side. But there were also people that were councils that came together, and these councils, Nicene Council, Chaldean Council, and things of that nature, they decided what you were going to believe about what it is that you believe. So what's in the Bible is what they wanted you to believe, because they had to put controls into position in order for you to believe the way that they want you to believe, instead of the way that God originally intended and ordained, who God called you, created you to be, and put you on this earth to govern. Many of us are caught up. We don't believe in apostles and prophets and, things of that nature. All of these things have passed away, because it says here in the scripture this, that, and the other. But none of us look beyond what or how the scripture was put together. None of us, even some of us, don't even know or never heard of the Nicene Council and things of that nature. You haven't heard of these people who decided what it was that you were going to believe, but you fight tooth and nail about what it is that you believe. And let me say this for you thumpers that are gonna say, that's why I don't go to church. That's why I don't believe in the Bible. But somebody already decided what you was gonna believe as well. So you really not saying anything. But let me get back to my point at hand. My point at hand is that the original intent of what we're called to be, those old systems are being stripped and derobed. And those of us who are coming into the original intent and being returned back to what it is that God originally placed us here to do on this earth, to rule and to reign. You're being robed in royal garments, nobility, kings and queens, because Jesus is King of kings. We are the kings that he is the king of, so we are under his kingship. But there are many people who gonna fight you tooth and nail because they're so holding on and stuck to what mama and them said, what tradition said, what denomination says. We don't believe the apostles and the prophets is no more, but we'll call a pastor a prophet. But there are no more prophets. So which one is it? Is he a prophet? He replaced the prophets. So why does the Bible say pastor and prophet? Apostle, prophet, pastor, teacher, evangelist. So now the pastor is the prophet and the pastor. So he's taking up two offices. But the prophet doesn't exist. But the pastor is the prophet. Make that make sense. But anywho, the original intent of what God has called us to do, what he's called us to be, to rule and reign. Many of you, you think you know what you are talking about, but you have no idea. You don't even know that what you believe was decided for you by a creed of people, by a council of people who wanted you to believe what it is that you believe, because they didn't want Jesus to hold the power on this earth, to govern it, to rule in the reign, and to put it in the hands of his disciples, the people who follow him, to be able to do the exact same things that Jesus came here to do. But we don't believe. Let somebody quote the scripture and say, I'm the righteousness of God. How dare you? You didn't read Romans? I am one with Christ. I'm seated in heavenly places. I'm an heir and a joint heir with Jesus Christ. So if I'm one with Christ, greater work shall I do. I'm going to do the work that Christ did and do greater works than he did. So people get upset when you start really putting on the robe, the original intent of what God called you to do. So because Constantine and the other teens and all of the other people in the 300s and the 325s that did not want for any other ruler to come and rule greater than the rulers who was already in position, they made themselves equal to Christ, and they downplayed a lot of what it is that Christ came here for us to do. And they decided that you would run and spit and jump and hoop and holler and do all of these things and don't have none of Christ in you, the hope of glory. And this is why we go up, and I know what I'm talking about because I did it for a long time. Beat up, busted, can't pay bills, can't do anything because we're so busy chasing what they already set into position for us to believe, instead of us being in agreement, governing kingdom economics and doing the things from heavenly places and ruling and reigning on this earth and doing what Jesus came here to teach us how to do. But it was changed by a council of people who were intimidated by what Jesus came here to do. So we'll rather stay in low positions and do all these works and never get to a place where we rule and reign. But it's time to change your robes from the old into the new. Because that old system, it ain't working. And if you are not ruling and reigning and taking the authority and changing your robe, you're going to miss everything that